guys, welcome back to my channel, and finally it's that time of the month where I actually go ahead and do my wrap up. So this is the Jan 2021 wrap up. So it is 31st Jan today and it's the morning time, so I basically rolled out of bed and decided that I had to film my Jan wrap up video. And basically the stats for Jan are pretty good, because if you remember in my 2021 goals video I had stated that I'm okay reading like 4 books a year. Sorry, not a year, a month. Four books a month. And yeah, that's what I did. I did not read 4. Instead, I read 5 books this month, and I'm very happy because I could just reduce the number of books. So basically, I read 6 to 7 books every month. Like that was the record in 2020. If there's like this very huge book, then normally it's 6. If there are these audiobooks coming in the middle, then it's 7. So yeah, and I could actually reduce 2 books and get to 5, and that's actually good. I'm happy with it. I don't know how I would be able to maintain it, because I'm just letting the whole thing go with the flow. I'm just like, okay, cool, like let it just happen. I'll read like whenever I feel like, and like in that organic manner. And yeah, so again, I don't know how much will I read. I'm not going to be like sitting with a pen paper and like discussing or like deciding what should I do in order to read less books a month. But yeah, that's the name, and that's something that I want to do, but not forcing myself to do, but doing it in doing it with the flow. So that's that. Now let's get to the wrap up part of it. So the first 2 books I want to talk about are those books that do not have a review or I DNF'd. So these are the books I mean, it's up to you whether you want to read it or not. So the first book that I want to talk about is my DNF this month, and that is The Lost Homestead by Marina. I've spoken about this on my channel before, and again, I was supposed to make a video on this, but I don't think I can even like spend energy to make a video on this one-sided whitewashed book. But let me just sum this up in this particular video about what's the problem with the book. 1, it comes from an extreme place of privilege, and it does not acknowledge it. So basically, when you talk about the partition is a very, very hard and harsh situation, an event, a tragedy that took place in India. And whenever you ask Indians to remember the partition, we remember photos of these bloodied people who have been mutilated, cut on both the sides, and it's very tragic, right? It should have never happened. But the problem is that this book does not acknowledge anything of that sort, and it basically talks about how privileged this lady's family is, and how after the partition, a few weeks after the partition, the family moves into an unfinished building at the Beverly Hills of Delhi, okay, at golf links, and then they like try to rebuild it. But a few months later, the one of the sisters of the family even ends up buying a house in Cuff Parade with servants in it. So you get my point, right? Like these guys are loaded. Like I've said, like Marina Wheeler's grandfather was a very influential person in the during British India, during the British Raj, and although the family was like emotionally traumatized, which I understand, it does not acknowledge like a lot of things, like the tragedy of the partition and stuff like that. Like it just talks about the whole family, and it's like very self-centered that way. So although like so the point is, when you read a book, you kind of tend to read between the lines, and it's just how do I call it? Like when you read between the lines, you understand that this person is not like aware, or this person is just trying to do kind of write in a selective manner about the partition, and wants to show how like privileged the family is, but not realizing that only 0.01% of the population was that privileged, that you could actually like have money after you moved to India, and your life was like not that difficult. So also, I'm dropping one more mini spoiler. If you do not want spoilers, please skip. The spoiler goes in 3, 2, 1. Basically, also these guys moved in next to the Canadian High Commissioner's office. Okay, so imagine like leaving behind a lot of things, coming to India from Pakistan during the partition, and not having to go to any refugee camp, but then you move into like an unfinished building, then end up finishing it, and you move in next door with the High Commissioner of Canada. Like, how privileged is that? And this book just says, like, oh, you know what, then they did this, then they did that. And that's like one of the major themes of the book, that particular privilege. It's just, it's not at all acknowledged. The privilege is not at all acknowledged, and it's irritating because it's like a high schooler writing the book. The second problem with the book is that it's very one-sided, because the only bad incident that it talks about, which happened in British India, is the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. It does not talk about, for example, the Great Famine of Bengal. It does not talk about a lot of like atrocities that Indians in general had to face because of the British. It shows a very British perspective of this whole situation. Also, I want to add that in order to get more context about the book, I had also attended an event, an online event, where Anchal Malhotra, who's an Indian oral historian and a writer, was in conversation with Marina regarding this book, because both of them have books on the partition. This is Marina Wheeler's book on the partition, and Anchal Malhotra has written the remnants of a separation. So that's that. So basically, during the conversation, Marina Wheeler states that, like, the target audience of this book is her family primarily, and secondarily it's the British people. So my point is that when you're writing a book about colonialism for the British people, don't whitewash it. Like, let them know that this is the horrific things that had happened during colonialization. This is what happened because of colonialism in general, and you have to be like honest about it. You don't need to whitewash it and say that, you know what, we were not like responsible for this, or you don't need to like selectively omit like instances, right? Because she even states that she was trying to like put in somewhere that the British rule is not evil. It was not all evil. It was like even like establishment of democracy in India, and there's a lot talk about railways as well in India. So my point, this book again, like I say, it's whitewashed. I know it took like a lot of time of this particular video, but I wanted to state it, and I wanted to rant about it on some kind of forum, and this is it. So read it at your own risk. Again, if you are an international person, if you're not an Indian and you're reading it, that is like, this is an international book available all over the world. Now understand that this is one-sided. It's not like two-sided. Like, the only other side that you see is about her family and not anything else. I do agree with a few things, by the way, in the book. It's not like all bad, but 80% of it is bad, and it's not at all like, it's not at all like covering the Indian side very well about it. So that's that. That's all about this book. Now, the second book is kind of something that I had received for review, and it's Glory Rosalind and the Heart of the Universe by Tushar. And apparently, I have no review or star rating for this particular book because of some reason the author stated. And yeah, I read it, I cannot talk about it, and that's it. That's it. Those are the two books that I either don't have a review for or I DNF'd. So let's start with the books that I actually rated this month. And the first book that I rated 3 stars, actually 3.7 somewhere there, and that is Trying to Grow by Firdaus Kanga. This was a buddy read with Sean the Book Maniac, and both of us have kind of the same opinion regarding the book. Even he ended up giving it 3 stars or so, and even I ended up giving it 3.7 stars. The reason I do not like this book, and the reason why this is 3, is because there is a lot of dark humor surrounding death in the book. The book is like a wacky one. It talks about Firdaus Kanga, who has osteogenesis imperfecta or the brittle bone disease, and it's like a semi-autobiographical aspect of his life. So our main character is called Brit Kotwal. He's called Brit because he has the brittle bone disease, and it talks about like the struggles that Brit has to face because he needs wheelchair for assistance. And it's a nice book. It's wacky. The humor is like great, but the problem is that the same humor does not work when people die, and I think that's the problem with the book. Like, I understand the humor is the central part of the book, but when someone dies, don't make it comical. When someone dies, don't make it like it's out of a cartoon, right? Because I'm not watching Cartoon Network. I'm reading the story of a man who needs assistance, and I'm looking to be inspired, because this person, although he has a condition, he's still living, he's still traveling the world and things like that. So yeah, you get my point, and that's why I ended up giving this about I don't know, I ended up giving this 3.7 stars, and now I think I should have reduced it to 3, but anyway, that's that. I recommend it only if you like wacky books with like dark humor, but if you don't like those books, then that's completely fine. You can just skip this one. Okay, so now let's get to the books that I rated 4 stars, and all the 3 other books that I'm going to talk about in this video have been rated 4 stars. The first book that I rated 4 stars because I finished this earlier in the month, and that's Djinn Betrol on the Purple Line. Now, I really appreciated this book. It's a nice book. It's a good read. I think it's like a nice one-time read. I don't think I'll be reading it again, but I like the essence of the book in general. My thing with this book is that it starts off as Slumdog Millionaire 2, but it ends up as like a heartbreaking emotional piece. I think the main thing that I have realized being like a reader of Slumdog Millionaire Part 2 is the fact that there is a lot of innocence in the book. Basically, the gist is simple. A child goes missing in a slum, and all of these kids gather around and they go in search of him. So it's more like these kid detectives who are trying to solve a case, and the book is written from the kid's perspective, and that's like very innocent. The book also kind of like talks about a lot of like issues, social issues in India currently. For example, social issues on the basis of politics, on the basis of religion, and it talks about a lot of stuff like that. It's very interesting. I like it a lot, and I liked it. And my only thing would be that like again, like when you're reading this, it's not like that biased piece that you see. Like, it's not at all biased in any manner. It kind of like does speak the truth to some level, and that too, like when you listen to it or read it from a child's point of view, it's like good. So yeah, that's that. The next book that I rated 4 stars, which I really loved, was The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Deesha Philyaw. I love this book. Oh my goodness. Like, where was this book all my life? I love it. Like, really. Okay, so basically this book is about the secret lives of church ladies, like it says. And it's basically like all of our characters, like these are a set of short stories, and all of our characters are kind of indulging some or other sin that the religion does not allow. And it's very interesting to see, right? Because they are kind of rebels internally, but then they still go to church, and they're like doing a lot of stuff, and it's very interesting, and I like that kind of dichotomy of the situation, and it kind of like enthralled me. And Deesha Philyaw writes beautifully well. Okay, all of these complicated topics that you see is like they're kind of woven into these beautiful stories, be it homosexuality, be it adultery, be it gluttony, things like that. So it's nice. I like it, and that's cool. Okay, so now the last book that I want to talk about, which I read, like I've actually finished this like just yesterday, and rated it 4 stars, and that's this one. This is The Women Who Invented Facebook and Other Stories by Nisha Susan. This is again a set of short stories. So this is the short story book that I had to read for the month, and like, as you know, if you've watched my 2021 goals, I want to finish like 1 short story book a month, and that's like, yeah. Okay, so this is the book. I loved it. Again, I would highly recommend this one. I always compare Nisha Susan to Deesha Philyaw now, because Deesha Philyaw writes about taboo topics in Christianity and within church-going ladies, and she writes about taboo topics in the Indian society, like online dating or women basically going wild and partying, and it's very interesting. I think like I liked a lot of stories in here. I'll talk about a few. Like, my favorite stories actually in here were wait, I'm actually trying to get this. Okay, so my favorite stories were No Filter, How Andrew Wiley Broke My Heart, and Missed Call. I also like the first story in the book, and that is The Women Who Forgot to Invent Facebook, and also Workout of the Day. So again, highly recommended if you are an Indian. I'm not sure like who would be like the appropriate audience for the book, because if you're a traditional reader, you may not like this, because it does talk about a lot of wacky taboo topics like that. So yeah, that's that, and I recommend it. So yeah, that's that. And yes, with that we end my weekly reads. No, it's my Jan 2020 wrap up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you hopefully on my weekly reads. Bye.